Sweet. What's going on, everybody? Another glorious week, the Agent Boost podcast. We've been switching it up a little bit. You know, some of the hosts and guests over the last couple weeks because it's summer. Everybody's traveling and it's a little chaotic. So, anyways, you got me and
I'm back.
A new guest.
Stop it.
Not a new guest, a recurring guest.
It'll never get old for him.
I just like to tease Bryan. So, anyways, Bryan Smith from our team on here. And today we're going to be talking about something that's pretty timely this time of year. You know, already in the last few weeks we talked about certifications, AHIP coming out. You know, if you're not getting the tone yet, it's really that time where AEP is creeping up on us. It really, for us, like my anxiety starts to kind of already like creep in, thinking about executing our plans for AEP because it's timely, right? Like as soon as the certifications come out, as soon as you're starting to hear, you know, the whisper campaigns from carriers about bid filings, everything kind of happens very, very quickly. And so today we're going to be talking about Walmart stores. And that's one of these initiatives where it's a love and hate relationship from us on the admin end where I go, all right, I'm really excited about these Walmart stores and the great initiative and the opportunity it is. And then it's like, ooh, there's a lot on the administrative side that goes into doing these Walmart stores.
It used to be. It's kind of evolved over the past 5, 6, 7 years. It used to be a simple opportunity. You pay a one-time store fee and you're there.
Right. Yep.
It's totally changed.
Yeah, so we're going to be talking really, really in depth in this episode. You know, we've already had a preliminary meeting with our rep at Humana and kind of went on our first round webinar, kind of got the lay of the land of how the program is going to be because it has changed. To Bryan's point, this has been an evolving, changing program over the years, and we want to kind of be able to give you more context about how the program used to work historically, how it worked last year, how it's going to work this upcoming year, what are those differences, and then we also want to be able to tell you who we think are good agents or a good fit for working these opportunities, and where and how we've seen agents, you know, be successful in these Walmart stores.
And how agents align with Agent Boost marketing, what they're going to see if they onboard.
Yeah, and
stuff.
for our and yes, and definitely for our own agents who are already working with us, you know, hopefully we can just use this as an evergreen piece and really explain the opportunity and how we're going to support them in the initiative. So,
and it has, back to your point again, it does, the program has changed, you know, 100% almost. And the way we support agents has also changed, even from last year. So the way we've supported agents last year in this opportunity to moving forward, what we're doing this year is different as well.
Yeah, don't jump ahead. Don't give them that's the end part, Bryan.
That's the end part.
That's like the good.
Start with dessert, don't you?
Yeah. That's what my wife's grandpa used to say. You know, God rest his soul. You know, so when you get to be my age, you have dessert first. Yeah. But, anyways, going through Walmart. Hey, I almost feel like with the Walmart stores, it's almost to some degree like a rite of passage. You know, when you kind of first get into the industry, you know, I cut my teeth at a Walmart store, and for you people who would have any sort of a context, I still remember my very first year of being a United Healthcare ICA and them saying like, hey, we got you this store. It's up in Syracuse, you know, Utah, and it was forever away. I mean, it was an hour and 20-minute commute for me to drive up there and back, and I freaking did it. And I did it 2 days a week or 3 days a week, driving up there an hour and 20 minutes and back each time for a 4 or 6 hour shift. And I did that for my whole first season, and it wasn't as productive as I would have liked. And I did write business, and I think I did write 30 to 40 apps as a brand new agent doing that, but I wasn't satisfied with that, you know, obviously. But
well, if you can remember, when the Walmart stores were just for Humana agents only,
right?
It's the only carrier you could represent in that store.
Right.
That changed pretty quick after.
Well, there had been some years going back and forth. Like, so if we wind back the clock, like let's say 10 years ago or more, there were some years where they let independent agents in, and then, you know, Walmart had some exclusivity with their market point agents for a number of years. Right. And then there was kind of a period of time where they extended that, where there was recognition that maybe it isn't a good idea to have the agents being captive and only selling one product. So then the agents who, even though they were market point, they got them appointed to represent multiple carriers through like a third-party brokerage. Right. And so then those agents who are in the Walmart stores were still Humana, career, so to speak, but they held appointments with other, carriers, like United Healthcare, Aetna, and such, and they had multiple appointments. Just coincidentally happened they didn't sell a whole lot of those other carriers, but they had the appointments. So there's been iterations over time of what that's really looked like. But now we've kind of arrived to this point where I think it was about 2 years ago where things fairly significantly changed. And one of the things, a lot of the agents who've been in the industry for a while, we remember everything like the good old days, right? Like I remember the good old days of when I could cold call people off of a list, get them to a seminar, buy them a steak dinner, and close 30 deals on the spot.
Or you can spend $500 on a mail piece and get 50 leads.
Yeah, I mean, we all feel warm and fuzzy about the good old days, and those
were.
And those days have come and gone, and so now here we're in a different environment where things have gotten more expensive. You used to be able to pay $500 and then you would lock up and own that whole Walmart store, and whether you kind of squandered the opportunity or you maximized it, whether you were there a day or 5 days a week or 7 days a week, that was completely up to you. You didn't have to report your shifts. I mean, once you cut the check for $500, it was yours, and you own the store to do as you'd like with it, right? As long as you followed like the requirements of not putting it too close to the pharmacy or where people are, have a PHI or receiving services. So there was kind of very few guidelines as to what you have to follow. Now over time, it's evolved quite a bit, to your point. And the reason that everything's gotten more expensive, right? If we look at the cost of doing business over these last few years, everything's more expensive. Lead vendors are more expensive. Technology is more expensive for the most part. People's ROIs or CPAs are getting higher. It's kind of the nature of the beast, right? So same as with the Walmart stores. So again, for all of you people who are reminiscing about how wonderful things were back in the day, that's great. Hold on to that wonderful memory. That's gone. Let's talk about Walmart.
It's not coming back.
And what the initiatives really look. And by the way, they're still great initiatives. And the reason that things are expensive is because it is a good opportunity, right? It is a great opportunity to be in front of hundreds and sometimes thousands of consumers in a short period of time and being able to sell them products, and especially in a very, very disruptive sales year environment we're going to have.
Well, anymore, it's been kind of an actual marketing initiative that agents plan on doing. It used to be you fall into a retail store for lack of planning.
Right.
Now it's actually part of an agent's plan.
Yeah, we would talk to agents a lot about that and say, hey, if I have always, and I always will be a person that I really tend to prefer on being proactive. And I like being able to control my time and know and anticipate the kind of results that I'm going to get with my time versus hoping that it works out. And I will say that a lot of the agents in the past who have worked a Walmart store or any retail initiative, it's because lack of planning and they don't have a game plan. And so they'd say, well, I don't know how or where I'm going to generate my sales leads or my sales, where they're going to come from. I'm going to go plant or post up somewhere and, be in front of people and hopefully I make sales, right? But now, yes, agents are being very proactive about which stores they're going to be in. They're game planning their whole AEP around Walmart's. And that's due to the fact that they have been highly productive and proven as a sound strategy for years now.
This comes back to a previous podcast we did about marketing initiatives, grassroots efforts. The only reason why that's working for those agents is because they keep going back. And it's just not a one and done.
Well, we'll talk about the best ways to approach it and who's a better fit for it. So let's talk about kind of the economics of it. So Bryan, if you would and I brought Bryan on, of course, because he actually interfaces with the person at Humana who runs this program, who leads the webinars, who gives us all of the logistics. And we're going to get into the nitty-gritty details of, there's actually certain rounds that we go through of bidding and trying to secure stores on behalf of our agents and our distribution. And so we're going to get into all those details with you, but give us at least the outline of how it works for this past year and give us that information first before we start looking at next year.
So this past year was the very first year that Walmart decided they want a little bit bigger piece of the pie. So when someone writes an application in a Walmart store in previous years, that was just their money, commission, 100%. They earned, they took it away.
Well, let's frame that a little bit. So Walmart as a business says, hey, we've got overhead, we've got these stores, we've got brick and mortar, we've got
They realize
huge investment. And then their objective as a retailer is to say, how do I maximize the dollars out of every square foot in my retail store? And when they make a decision to say, hey, I'm going to convert X amount of square footage instead of shelf space where I'm selling SKUs and products, and I'm going to have a vision or optometry center, I've got to know that I'm getting more dollars out of this square footage in selling glasses in an optometry center than I am other products on the shelf. And so the same thing, they're just going, hey, if we're going to tie up this much square footage in our retail stores, just like everything, we have to be able to get more revenue out of that square footage that we're allowing to be in our stores. So just, from their perspective, I completely see the thought process and the why.
Sure. So in order to participate in a store last year, you had to, and it looks very much similar this year, but there are a few changes, but you had to agree to the store for one. Once you select it, it's locked in and you have to work it.
Yep.
Now, granted, this last year went a little bit longer in negotiations and whatnot, and so the program was very lenient on the rules, but not so moving forward. But basically, you picked a store, you went to the training that was provided, everything is communicated by Humana in a timely fashion.
And the training's online. It's not in
correct.
It's an online training.
It's a self-paced training online that goes over all the best practices, how to act, what to do, what to wear, who to reach out to.
And it's required, right? It's not optional.
One of the requirements that a lot of agents, I know for a fact, did not take advantage of is the meet and greet with the pharmacy manager. You must be, set some time aside to go and meet that director in the store that you're going to be in, because that's a great relationship to have.
And we'll talk about best practices when we get into, and that's a huge missed opportunity by a lot of people.
But it's a requirement as well.
Yeah.
So it's part of their requirements. Then you are required to not only staff the store for the required amount of hours, which last year was...
So let's just talk this last year right now.
Last year was a very lenient 20 hours a week.
Okay.
You had to use the Sunfire enrollment portal, which was
new.
That was new for this last year as well.
Yep.
And you had to schedule your time.
Mm-hmm.
Then if you did not show up, there's other things that happen, and there's secret shoppers, all that stuff. But there was also a minimum app count that you'd have to hit.
15 was that?
Last year was 10.
10. All right.
10 enrollments. Or was it 15? No, I'm sorry. You're correct. 15. I'm wrong. 15 enrollments. And there was a rental fee for the store.
It was what, $200 a month?
$200 a month. So,
and I would venture to guess. I don't have the data. I'm just guessing. I bet you a lot of those agents just very coincidentally reported like 10, 11, 12 apps, something like that, right?
Yeah, they got creative because ACA counted toward that app as well, that app count, and so did PDPs.
Oh.
Those commissionable PDPs, not non-commissionable products or anything that was suppressed.
Gotcha. Yeah, because how would they have written it anyway, right? So again, kind of to summarize, this last year, it was new that you had to use Sunfire to report, and you had to use it to report and schedule your shifts, and you had to use it for the enrollments and report your sales activities through Sunfire. And so I think that caused a lot of heartburn for people over this last year. And then you also had to do a certification online in order to be eligible for store, and you had to work 20 hours in the store. And again, look, I don't know why agents have such heartburn over this, because like any sales objective, it doesn't matter what I've ever been selling, management or leadership, they want to have some sort of data points where they can see what is happening. I need to have oversight. I need to be able to see the success of the program, the KPIs, where are we performing well, where are we not? This should be an expectation that every agent should have.
The Sunfire enrollment process was easy for a broker who's been using it.
Right.
They already know how to use it. They would log in. It would give them 2 roles to choose from before it actually went to their dashboard. It was retail roles versus regular roles.
Yep.
It's those agents that just did things the old school way, like you were talking about before, paper apps. We still have agents doing paper apps. Who knows why? Yep. But they had a tough time, learning that platform.
Because they wrote an app on 6/1 and dated it the day before to make it effective. You know, I'm just kidding. Agents don't do that.
Don't do that.
But, essentially what we're going to talk about is, but how does that look like for 2026? So for this upcoming AEP this fall. And it's going to look just slightly different. I think that the biggest changes to the Walmart initiative already happened this last year, right? And I mean, technically, the program, like, how many different FMOs bid on it, Brian? We're one of how many? Like,
I believe
10,
there is 60.
12? Okay, so there's a bunch of FMOs
that bid on stores.
So we get on a call typically with all these different agencies, and we go through these rounds, correct?
Yes, so the first round is what's called the right of refusal round. So typically what the FMO would get was the stores that they serviced last year.
So every store has like a store number, right? And if they had a store in a previous year, the first round is actually starting this next week. And when you're hearing this podcast, it's going to be this coming 16th. Monday. What is that, the 16th?
June 16th, I believe, round one starts. But not all those stores that you had this previous year will always be on your first right of refusal report, because you may have had a store removed from you for non-compliant reasons,
or deficiencies,
stuff like that.
Right?
Correct.
So the round one, just so everybody understands, is starting this next week. So I mean, we're mid-June, and we're already having to lock in stores for this fall, just so that everyone's aware. And the round one is the first right of refusal stores. So again, if you were an FMO or an agent affiliated with an FMO and you had a store, you fulfilled all of your requirements, you reported everything properly, you hit your sales number that you needed to or exceeded it, everything was done very kosher and compliantly, then that store should be on the list for first right of refusal. You'll be able to choose whether to re-up and have that store for this coming fall for round one, correct?
Correct. And just a little caveat there, if the store is not there, that is not the fault of the FMO. Ultimately, we do all we can to, reach out to the brokers who are not necessarily bad actors, but are not, taking the right steps to make sure that store is staffed. They're not putting in requests to change their schedule if they need to. They'll be reached out to by the Humana Oversight Committee, and we get that information as well, and we reach out to the broker that we've staffed that store with. You can't make anybody do anything. So ultimately, it's on the agent.
Ultimately, what we're trying to convey is that if you're an agent who worked in a Walmart store this past year and you're planning to have that same store, you may or may not have it, because if you didn't do something correctly, meaning that you didn't staff it the hours you were supposed to, you didn't report correctly, you didn't use Sunfire the way you were supposed to, you didn't hit your app threshold, you had deficiency somewhere, you may already in your mind be anticipating that you're going to be back in that store this next year, but chances are that if you had deficiencies, you're not going to have it for round one in first right of refusal, that store is not going to be available. And that store is actually going to open up for round two, and other people are going to be able to bid on that store essentially, or take that store, and you may not be able to have that store. So that's kind of what we're trying to convey to anybody listening, is it's really, really, really important that if you're an agent who's planning to work a Walmart store, you understand the program, you understand the expectations, and that you're doing everything properly, because you have to work it like a job. You literally have to say, this is important. I'm scheduled to be there. I have to show up. I have to follow all the guidelines. I have to be early, or I have to be on time for my shift. If I can't make it, I'm sick, or I have something come up, I have to make that change in the portal in Sunfire with scheduling. I have to report my sales accurately. If you're not going to be doing those things anyway, it's going to be short-lived. You're not going to keep these stores. I mean, it's just not going to work out. This
year is going to be pretty much a full-time job. It's with the hours that are required for this next year's open enrollment time.
Yeah, and we'll get there. So right now we're going through like the different rounds. So right now round one is upon us with these first right of refusals.
If you remember, when we were initially granted our initial opportunity to be an FMO
years
partnership,
ago.
We didn't have any stores that were
we had zero
get
first
for
right
round one.
Yeah.
So our round one was nothing. We had to wait and then get everyone sloppy seconds, so to speak.
We've come a long way. So, but yeah, we had to start from the bottom. Drake says, start at the bottom.
And we're here.
I'm at the top.
So round two.
Yeah, so round one's happening this next week. Again, nothing for agents to take action on other than if you've already been working in stores and you want to elect to keep the same store, then there's things to do. Now, round two, what's the date for round two?
July 1st.
That's the wild, wild west, all right?
But also, back to round one, this is also the planning phase to be able to request stores for round two.
Yep.
So if there's any agents out there that would like to have this opportunity and work at Walmart, now is the time to get those store numbers, addresses, whatever, get those to your FMO so they can at least try to get them in round two for you.
Yep. We're gathering our list right now of all the stores that we're going to essentially like bid on or try to secure for round two. So obviously we're going to get a list from our reps at Humana as to which stores are eligible for us to renew for first right of refusal.
Right.
And then we're going to be gathering our list of all the stores that we're going to have ready immediately to submit on round two and try to secure for agents. If you're not communicating with us as your FMO or with your current FMO on what stores you want, and you're not communicative over these next couple of weeks, you're going to be, basically shit out of luck. I should be saying SOL. My bad. You're going to be SOL. You're probably not going to get the stores that you want. This planning starts very early in the year.
Yes.
So.
And to your point, you'll be behind the 8 ball, absolutely, if you do not have the stores ready that you want to get. Now, when I say have the store ready, have at least 2.
Yeah.
Give you one and then a backup one. Yep. Right? And I wish it was an actual bid process. I wish we could bid on the stores and buy them, but you can't. It's a timestamp.
This is just like playing like my kids' Little League football. And we say, give us your 3 jersey numbers. We can't guarantee you we're going to give you the number that you want on your jersey, but give us like 2 or 3 stores that are your preference. We'll try to get you your first one. If not, we'll go to your second. We'll try to go to your third. Right. We're going to do our best efforts to secure you a store. But it is kind of a little crazy, the bidding process.
Yeah, and I got a lot of flack last year for not being able to get the stores that agents said they wanted. And that's not for lack of trying. It's just because it was a very convoluted process last year with the Google Sheets that were created for each FMO. It was very, very labor-intensive, and they didn't need to do that. They found a better way. So now there's going to be one sheet for all FMOs to populate, a master sheet. And it's, like I said before, it's not a bidding process, although I wish it were, because we'd be able to spend some money and get stores we want. It's not the case. We put in each Walmart store that the agent has requested, and we have to sit there and wait to mash our submit button at the time.
So what's the time, Brian, on July 1st for round 2?
That had changed as well. It's now, remember, it's Eastern time, and so Humana decided, let's just make it noon Eastern.
Okay, so July 1st, noon Eastern, so that you understand context, we have a master sheet and we have an agent boost sheet of all these stores that we want to bid on. Let's say we're bidding on, or I shouldn't say bid, it sounds like I'm an auction, that we're trying to select or secure. So we have a list of these stores that we're trying to secure. And let's say we have 65 or 150 stores, whatever it may be, we're sitting there on the ready. And then at July 1st at noon Eastern, like the stock market, we're just sitting there trying to mash the keyboard to get our stores submitted.
And it all comes by timestamp. Yep.
And the timestamp goes in and we get stores or we don't get stores. But that's kind of to give you an idea of what it looks like for us. Little wild. And then after round 2, July 1st, they kind of shake out and award the different stores.
But it's also important to know that once round 1 closes, the stores you selected or the stores that you selected in that first right of refusal, those are yours. You're going to pay for them regardless.
Yep.
Even if you decide after the fact, oh, you know what, that one that I said I wanted again.
Can I change it?
Change it. Sorry, round 1's closed. That's yours. You're going to buy it.
Yep. It's done. It's locked in. So anyhow, that's kind of round 1, round 2. And then I think they have another follow-up round after that, right, Brian, where they're like, hey, we got these stores that are kind of left over that didn't get selected or that we haven't awarded that are still available. That's like a round 3.
It's called round 3.
And do we know when round 3 happens?
I believe it's going to be around the 15th. Or no, I think that goes into August. I'll have to find out for sure.
I don't want to call it table scraps or sloppy seconds because that's not always the case. Sure. But I think a lot of the highly sought-after stores are locked up during round 1 and round 2. There's still plenty of opportunity when it comes to round 3 in available stores. But you will start to find that there's more, marketplace Walmarts and more Sam's Clubs and things like that available in the round 3. Most of the super centers are pretty much locked up in round 1 and 2 as a general statement.
Right. So round 2 starts, like I said, July 1st. July 14th is the finality of round 2.
Gotcha.
And then round 3 will start July 17th.
There you go. All tight timelines. And that's kind of how it looks. So once an agent gets awarded and secured a store, then they're going to be obviously required to go through training again, right? So we're going to have to, we as the FMO have to report who the NPN of the agent is working that store, correct?
Yeah, it's a very easy process on our end, thank goodness, because we don't have to run the training, although I do an additional training for each broker that gets that opportunity. But there is 100% accountable information that goes out to these agents of when the training is, when it's completed, next steps, processes, procedures.
Mm-hmm. So again, plan on once you secure a store or get a store, you're going to have to complete that training, and that is in addition to your AHIP or other carrier certifications. It's its own standalone certification through, like, I think it was Brainshark last year or something like that.
So
I don't know who it is through this year, but it's a module similar and will feel similar to like a carrier certification, and it will go through like best practices and what you can and cannot do, and really the expectations behind the program. So it's one of those things where if you're going to be doing the Walmarts, I would encourage you to actually pay attention and read and study. I'm a salesperson too. We all like to just click to the end and take the test, but I think you should pay attention to the module.
yeah.
So
Also, you are required to have at least 2 participating Medicare Advantage carriers to maintain this, and those have to be ready to sell by September 10th.
I think that's generous, to be honest.
That is way too generous.
Yep. We're telling agents to be certified, at a point in August, not September. We're more on top of it than that. So I think that's very generous with time. But you do have to have multiple carriers, and you do have to be ready to sell. So what happens if somebody's not ready to sell and they haven't done certs by September, whatever? Do they yank the store?
That's yet to be determined. That was very much, there was a lot of leeway last year. So we've been told this year, you're not going to get the same amount of leeway you had last year.
Okay, very good. And so that's kind of, I guess that at least kind of outlines for people listening, what does the process look like? What does the timeline look like? What are the expectations? Now let's talk about the economics of doing it for this coming year, and then we can talk about the best practices and everything. So dollar-wise, I'm an agent, Brian. I want to work a store. I give you my list of 3. How much does it cost for me to do the store?
The store rental fee for 2025 AEP is $200 per month times 3 months, which is $600. You can't.
So that's
you
October,
can't
November, December.
Yeah, you can't just do 1 out of the 3 months or 2 out of 3. If you're getting the store, it's a $600 flat fee.
You're committing to the full 3 months. You're committing to October, November, and December. All 3. You can't cherry pick, and you can't pick and choose. You also can't say, I kind of started this in October, but turns out it's not what I thought it would be. I'm going to, not do this anymore.
Well, you're also committing to at least 3 days a week for a total of 30 hours a week from October 6th to the end of AEP.
So Brian said something really important. You can be in the stores October 6th. That's the date when you can actually be in these stores, which is, in that kind of that pre-AEP period. You can't be taking enrollments until the 15th, but you can be having initial conversations. You can establish your presence. You can meet with the pharmacy manager. You can start doing a lot of the preliminary work as of October 6th, and you can continue through in December. And I think that one thing that's important this year is, we've talked about it, you're going to continue to see a lot of non-commissionable SARS, suppressed plans. There's going to be more chaos. I think there's going to be a lot of continued opportunity past December 7th this year too.
Absolutely. They actually you can actually lock up your store through June 30th of next year. Walmart is very happy to have agents in these stores. They like it. And they don't know why we're not, staffing these stores year round. So you can go all the way through June 30th of next year with another round of rental fees coming in OEP.
Yeah. So is there an additional app commitment if you extend, or just the rental fee?
Yes, there's an additional app. So let's talk about the
AEP.
The initial app commitment for AEP, which was 15 last year, it is now 25.
Yep.
Now, just like everything, cost increased for Walmart, cost increase for us across the board. So they're requiring 25 apps. Now, that's not specifically because Walmart wants it. It's
Let me chime in there, Brian. You know, we had a conversation before we did this podcast episode with somebody at Humana, and the reality is the reason they had to up it from 15 to 25 is candidly because agents weren't adequately reporting their applications. They just weren't. I mean, people were not adequately reporting the numbers, and so they had to increase the number to kind of capture at least more revenue from the opportunity and to reflect it. And so they bumped it up to 25. So if you're, for those of you, and the fee that they actually do, they charge a fee per application. It's $100 per MA app. So for those of you who are doing math at home, you pay $200 a month, October, November, December, and then there's a fee of $100 per MA app as well. So if even at hitting the minimum, let's say you hit the minimum number of 25, that's $2,500 in cost plus the rent of $600. Minimum, you're going to be $3,100 to be into a Walmart store this coming fall.
And there is a penalty for not hitting the app count as well. So if you're shy 5 apps and you hit 20, you'll still ultimately be charged that $500 deficiency.
Yeah, the $2,500. Yep. So you can't just, say that you had less and save any dollars. You're still going to pay $2,500 as a minimum. And also, I believe if you don't at least hit the minimum sales, kind of criteria, that the next year you're not going to be defaulted into first right of refusal.
Well, it does matter at this point how many stores the FMO is able to secure because they take an aggregate total. And if you hit 25 apps across the board, the overages in some areas will compensate for the deficiencies in others. So even though you may have not hit that full 25, odds are your other store is compensated for it, and you won't be hit with that penalty.
Yeah. And so understand, too, we, as an FMO, we actually have a contract in place, and it's actually technically with IFG. So IFG is a subsidiary of Humana. They were acquired by Humana, I want to say 2 to 3 years back. And so IFG is the entity who is actually pushing paper out to us. We actually sign a contract with IFG for each one of these store locations, and we have to financially commit to not only the store rental, but then also the $100 per MA app in the store. And then we also have to pay a fee for PDPs and for ACA cells as well. Now, granted, it's kind of hard to find a PDP that pays commissions these days, but if you find one, that pays a commission, then we do have to pay, what is it, 20-something bucks for a PDP?
$25 for the initial compensation.
$25 per PDP sold. And then on the ACA, was it $23 per enrollment. So $23 on an ACA cell, $25 on a PDP, $100 MA. That's what we pay initially in addition to the rent.
And they all count toward the 25 app minimum.
Correct. Now, on the back end, in perpetuity, every policy they track, because you do have to enter the sales data into Sunfire, and so they're going to track the life of the policy. And every year at renewal, we also are required to pay $50 per MA application.
That's still on the books, yeah.
Yeah. That's
15,
active.
15 for PDP.
Yep. And the other one on ACA, 23 still, I think.
23 still,
I think it's still a flat 23. Yeah. So
it's a PMPM.
Those are the fees that we have to pay ongoing and in perpetuity. And essentially once we as like an FMO agent boost sign that agreement, we're on the hook. So we turned around with the agents too, and we also give them an agreement. And, what we're actually doing with our agents, which I think is very generous, is we're going to incur the cost of all the app, the amounts per app. So the $100 per MA app, as well as all the perpetuity in the back end, we're going to completely pay for the cost, and we're going to have the agents just pay the rent. So
very generous.
Yeah. So if you look at the financial skin in the game, we want agents to still have some skin. We feel that agents work best when they're financially involved in the transaction, when their money's at stake, and we feel that that's when they do the best job. But we also want to do our best to be very generous with our agents and help them financially, especially because a lot of them aren't in the position financially to be doing this. We want them productive. We want them selling. And so we're paying the majority of those costs for them this coming fall.
If you can pay $600 and get in front of, on average, 1,000 people a day walking through Walmart in front of your booth, that's got to be the lowest cost per lead that you can think of.
Yeah. So it's a great opportunity. So that's kind of, at least from a financials and an economic perspective, that's what the opportunity is shaking up to look like this coming fall for the Humana, for the IFG and the Walmarts.
I think the biggest hiccup will be the extra 10 hours a week.
It's going to be challenging. And part of why we're spending 30, 40, 50 minutes on a whole entire episode talking about this, it seems a little bit, boring, a little dry to talk for 45 minutes about a Walmart store, is that we're conveying with as much detail as we possibly can about all this criteria. Because again, if you're listening and you're going, I want to be in a Walmart store and I want to sell 30, 40, 50. I mean, top performing agents, we hear of agents who write 200-300 apps in a store. It happens. They do. And we're going to get into best practices in a sec. But we also have agents who don't do well and they're still writing 20, 30 apps just because business hits them in the forehead. And so it is a pretty good opportunity, but it is just not for everybody. If you are refusing to adopt technology and use Sunfire, this is not for you. If you are not able to commit to 30 hours a week in a store to do this, this is not for you.
Up to that point, you can attack this by committee. So
right.
One agent does not have to service the entire Walmart. We can kind of split that up and say, a couple agents on this one, a whole agency, can opt in and buy a Walmart and spread.
Now you're talking about a team science project in school, Brian. Somebody might carry the water and somebody might not show up and screw them.
Absolutely.
But you certainly can. But the store needs 30 hours staffed, and whether that's between one agent or 3 agents or whatever, that just needs to be the requirement. But if you're not willing to put in the hours, you're not willing to pay the cash, at least if you're one of our agents and you're not willing to put up, $600 for the store rent, or you're not willing to use technology and you're not willing to be compliant and report your activities like your shifts, again, not for you. So we just want to make sure that that's very, very, very clear. And I think it should be, let's talk about the best practices and who this is for. I also would say, look, not everybody's the same. We see a lot of different agents and they're successful in different ways. Some people are really great on the phone and they're even great maybe at the kitchen table, but some people, retail or doing community events is just not their thing. And so they struggle. But if you're good and maybe you're bubbly, you're outgoing, you're very friendly and personable, this can be a really great opportunity for you to really excel in something like this. And there are restrictions. I still remember, you don't want to go chase people down the aisles and be non-compliant and be overly aggressive.
No, that's on the training.
Don't cross the threshold of your table, Brian, to, the CMS rules. You can't walk past the edge of your table to go solicit somebody. So you're going to have your rules. But one of the biggest pet peeves that I think I have with agents as far as best practices is if you're in a sales environment, you should be on. You should be ready to be your best version of yourself. You should be on, so to speak, and be friendly and be motivated and be in sales mode. I frequently go by Walmart booths and I see people on their phones like this, just screwing around. They're scrolling on TikTok. They're emailing. They're looking at YouTube. They're on their phone and they look very distracted and they look busy. And they do not look approachable. It's almost like if you had a Medicare beneficiary or somebody that wanted to talk to you about health insurance, they almost look like if they came up to the table, they'd be bothering you, like they're a nuisance.
Yeah.
And I can't tell you how often I see agents just sitting there and they look worthless. So please don't be that agent. You should be, preferably if you have the health for it, I'm encouraging you to stand up too. Stand up, be attentive, be addressing people, be approaching them, be friendly,
dress nice.
Yeah,
sure.
Be your best version of yourself there when you're doing retail. There's nothing worse than like a bump on the log, sitting in a chair, looking at YouTube behind the table. Okay, so that would be very much, something I would say from a best practice perspective, how to do it. The other thing I would tell you is it's now mandatory. Now, whether people do it or not, they should, is meeting with the pharmacy manager. When I used to work the Walmart stores, absolutely wasn't a requirement. I would go do it, introduce myself, tell them who I was, what I was trying to accomplish, ask them any kind of pain points with any of their payers. Is there anything that I could help them with? Could I educate the staff? Can I get to know them? I would even bring, snacks in and treats to the pharmacy techs and everybody else there and let them know the kind of resource that I was to send people to. I would also get to know the store manager. I would also go around every one of the checkout people and even the baggers so that everybody there knew who I was, what I was doing, And you would be surprised at how often people from the store would send customers your way at your table.
Absolutely.
So,
absolutely.
I would say that's definitely a best practice that you should do if you're working one of these stores.
One of the biggest gripes that I asked a question on the webinar we had with Humana about this, and I asked what was the biggest gripes that the actual Walmart employees or the manager at Walmart, what did they have to say? What don't they like about what was happening in the stores? The biggest issue was no one there.
Right.
Just empty tables.
Yep. They want you there.
Absolutely.
They want you there, the stores that are participating.
And guess what? There is many times where there'll be secret shops. So you need to be on your best compliant behavior as well.
The other thing that's annoying, best practices, you're going to have marketing materials that you can use that are compliant. Okay, it's probably in the training. I haven't taken the training this year yet. I'm sure I will, just to know what it's like. But I can't tell you how often I see agents bring like their own little whiteboard and start writing up on their whiteboard all this non-compliant garbage and crap. Don't do that.
And do not try to market or try to solicit enrollments from a non-participating carrier. That you'll get kicked out.
Right. Yep. So those are no-nos. Don't make your own marketing things. Follow the marketing materials that they give you to work in the stores. Make sure that your table, of course, is in an area that's compliant, that's not too close to the pharmacy, for an example. It's in the designated area, that you're not like moving your table to a different spot that you think is going to be better. I've also had agents do that. Don't do that as far as best practices. And then, of course, the other thing is just be available. And where we see people do very well, of course, you can schedule these appointments, go meet with them, go follow up. You can write and process applications in these stores if and where it's appropriate. But it's just interesting to see the agents that just squander these opportunities, Oh,
gosh, it's I see it all the time, and there's no shame in my game. I pay a lot of money for this. We pay a lot of money for this opportunity, and agents they pay a lot of money as well. So I'll get complaints from agents that come in and saying, hey, I remember one time I had a Walmart down south, and the agent that paid for the booth showed up for his shift, and someone else was there. A random agent was just there.
Squatting,
as
we call it.
And, I had to find out who he was. The guy had some cards, so, we had to reach out and make sure that didn't happen again. But, hey, like I said before, there's no shame in my game. If I walk by a Walmart and I see something non-compliant and it's one of my stores, I'm going to fix it. If it's not one of my stores, I'm going to do what I can to
Well, yeah, and
fix it.
Best practice, don't squat. Don't even think about it. I mean, if you do that kind of crap, you're going to have some compliance ramifications, so don't be a squatter. The other thing that I would tell you is successful. We've seen, especially in like rural areas, we've seen this be like a hub where agents will like use that as like their remote, like their satellite office, and that's where they've done very well, where they have consistency in them being there. And I will also tell you that maybe the first time somebody sees you there, they're not going to trust you. They don't want to stop. They don't want to talk to you. But by the second, the third, the fifth, the seventh time, you build more trust over time, seeing those same faces. So building consistency and building their trust is important as a best practice. And the same thing, use this as your mobile office. Like, you can go there too. And when you're looking around the store and it's absolutely dead and there's nobody around, sure, you can go check your email. You can call a quick consumer. You can schedule your appointment, use it as your office. But when the store is busy and there's people coming by, don't be doing that crap.
Well, to your point there is using it as kind of a satellite office. I think that could be, it depends on how you look at it, to the detriment of the agent. If when they're saying, hey, come see me at Walmart, if you end up changing that consumer's Medicare plan to a different one at the Walmart store, you just lost commission on it.
Well, but again, it's efficiency. You know what I mean? Like, look, I don't have a problem with that. And candidly, I think that that's efficient. If I can post up and have people come and see me and I'm just like processing business, look, like I even just said, I'm the FMO even paying the app count, right?
Okay.
Look, for our agents, we're paying for the app count. I don't care. I'll pay that all day long if it makes an agent be very efficient. And look, I think Walmart would appreciate that. You're getting people coming into their store, Maybe they're going to go spend some more money, buy other products, do other things. That's great. Get them through the door. Get them, get them writing apps. I'm perfectly fine because that agent is being efficient. They're prospecting new customers. They're servicing their own block of business. I'll take that all day.
And watch for the training that Humana puts on. It's very in-depth. They go through their own best practices of what works. Like Dan said, there's agents out there that wrote 300, all the way down to agents out there that wrote 0. Now, I talked with one agent that produced 0 out of a store because they wanted the same store back, and I said, that doesn't make sense. Why would you want to, repeat that and hit your head against the wall again?
If you wrote 0, why do you want to do it again?
And he said, no, I wrote 30 apps. I'm like, well, you didn't put any in there the right way. Well, I just didn't know how to work at the system. I'm like, now I have to go to bat for you.
I have my guesses as who the agent was.
And say why I want to get a 0 producing store back. So I've got to say, and here's what we're going to do different this time.
And look, here's the thing that I think I would convey to anybody as kind of like a wrap up and a final thought too, is that, look, people who work at Humana or people who work at Walmart, they're not stupid. Like it's very well established at this point that it's a good opportunity. And when we talked to our rep at Humana, they stated that the average reported app was 28 enrollments per store. That's why the number that they put,
skewed.
Which is skewed because a lot of people still underreport. They underreport because they don't necessarily want to pay all the fees. Maybe they're with an FMO who's not generous, who's not helping them. Maybe the agent had to pay 100% of the costs.
Or maybe they wrote 10 PDPs just to qualify.
So they're, so they're cutting corners. So they underreport. And the whole point is that the average is 28 that's been reported. We know that it's probably higher. There's business to be had there. And so you're not going to get ahead by trying to underreport applications. So just run the program right, run it like it's supposed to be ran. It's going to be a good initiative. You're going to make a lot of money. We as an FMO are happy in the relationship, that we play with, Humana / IFG in this store process. And facilitating these stores for our agents. We're happy to do it. I think it should be done the right way. And if you have any questions, you want some help with stores, we're always looking we're looking for more agents. So hit us up. We're happy to help you. You're one of our current agents. Same thing. Now you know the deal. We'd be happy to answer any other questions. Any final thoughts?
Well, you hit it on the head. Just be prepared to give us, if you want to participate, be prepared to give me 2 or 3 stores that you want to look at.
All right. Let's go write some business. And like always, we appreciate, our relationships we have at Humana and Walmart, and we're happy about the opportunity and think it's going to be great this AEP.
Yeah. Good luck, guys.